Hey, what's going on, everyone? Back with some knife content this afternoon. I am very excited to show you all this Les George VECP. And before I get started with this, huge shout out to my buddy Devin, Averett13. I will link his YouTube channel here in the comments below. But man, I kind of feel like I was borrowing his child for the weekend or something like that because ever since he got this knife, this has been his favorite knife. And I know from, knowing Devin for a while, he's tried it all. And this is kind of his main squeeze here. And, yeah, I'm so thankful that he sent it my way to check it out. We're gonna kind of go over my overview with it. I definitely see a lot of like similarities between this knife and other knives that I've reviewed slash owned, but it is a really special piece, and I definitely see where Devin's coming from with it. I mean, this thing is kind of a showstopper. I have to admit, like, he was kind of so all about this knife. I was like, man, I'll grab this thing, I'll pick it apart, do whatever. Like, no, this is such a solid knife that I'm really excited to show you all. This is the pouch that it comes with. So again, you have a zipper pouch, super pillowy, stuff like that. I'm assuming that they gave you this kind of 2x3 patch here. Les George, we'll get that out of the way. Before we get into my observations of this knife, I'll do a couple quick comparisons. And I did try to be very intentional with what I was comparing this knife to. But, right out the gate here. So the Les George VCP as compared to a Something Obscene. So this is going to be the J-Cape 3.5. Looks like that. I only picked that one because I just got it. I'm like, I kind of like it. They have a large Sabenza 31, kind of sharing that same Chad Nichols Damascus, realizing that this one's going to be the Boomerang, and this is going to be a Chad Nichols Intrepid, it's called. So same, but different. It was really cool to kind of put these knives together, though. I mean, completely like showstoppers. If you like knives, you put these two knives together, and it's like, ooh, yikes. And then next, we're going to look at it as compared to a Hinderer XM18. Looks like that. So, again, and I apologize, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but so the Les George VCP is going to be very linear, whereas like a lot of the Hinderers, the Striders, etc., are kind of like offset a little bit in the way that they sit when they're open, but very linear knife here, and I kind of like it. And then finally, I kind of had to dig in my gun safe for this one because I was like, man, I've seen this, like, and we'll get to it in a little bit, so I'm not going to explain myself right now, but the Les George VCP as compared to a Benchmade slash Emerson CQC7, and I don't know, I'll let you all know right now. So this CQC7, so it's an older Benchmade, so where the this butterfly logo still said Baldy Song on it, but on the back end it actually says Emerson. Lets you know that it is a Spec War model CQC7. And back in the day, before Emerson had their own way to manufacture knives, they actually made their knives in Benchmade's factory, and this was the result of it. So with that, we're going to go over my overview of the Les George VCP. Again, huge thanks to Devin. I want to get this review done so I can get this thing back in his pocket, but yeah, very, very appreciative. Like, this thing has just been awesome. It's a gorgeous knife, and yeah, looking forward to sharing it all with you. So the details with this version of the Les George VCP. So this is going to be a DLT trading. It was a part of their their days of Christmas, whatever. Devin ended up picking this up, and it is supposed to be hand ground by Les George himself. And I'm really not into like the custom folder game. Like, every time someone offers me one on trade, etc., I'm always a little apprehensive just because I really do like, I like production / mid-tech knives or whatever, but it was interesting to find out that this one was hand ground by Les George. And it was funny that the closer I look, and especially after, sharpening knives here for a couple of years now, you can definitely see that the clip side, like the edge on it is a little bit wider than on the show side. So that was just like, I mean, it's human, not even error, but it's just the way that it was like, we'll call it a human interpretation. I think that's more appropriate, but that was pretty cool to see. Again, like you can tell that a lot of time and thought went into the production of this knife. All right, the next observation that I had was I really did feel like the Les George VECP had very hindery, man, I need to work on that, but the backspacers here. So I don't know if it's just like OEM, like in the US, hey, you're looking for backspacers, like get these barrel spacers, whatever, but very similar and almost identical, just a smaller diameter to the ones that we see on this XM18. So maybe it shares a couple parts with a little hinder action. Oh, there you go. All right, the next observation that I had was just the quality of the Damascus. Again, I'm very familiar with the Chad Nichols boomerang, the basket weave, etc. But this Chad Nichols Damascus, so it's actually going to be called Intrepid, was very, very eye-catching. And realizing that my Sebenza 31 that I brought out here, so this has the boomerang Damascus, you can't tell the quality of the Damascus from like looking down at the blade, but on the Les George VECP, like you can actually get those like little waves there. Hopefully the camera picks it up, but the quality of Chad Nichols Damascus and the fact that like he has a website that you can buy blanks on to kind of make your own designs, etc. Like I think that that's really awesome. And I mean, this is just such a showstopper. If this had a plain Jane stainless blade on here, like it wouldn't be as impressive, but that Damascus just pops. And whatever this Chad Nichols Intrepid, like I'll admit I'm like looking online now being like, hey, what other knives have a Chad Nichols Intrepid Damascus, because it is that special. Like it absolutely looks amazing. All right, the next observation that I had, which, again, the knives that I brought out here to kind of compare this to, I did try to be very intentional with them, and I had to go back to my Hinder XM18, which I ended up just picking up this one, but I have owned Hinder XM18s in the past, and I thought it was kind of interesting, the similarities here, and the kind of long pole in the tent, or what I'm trying to foot stomp is, if you do like the Hinder XM18, like, you are going to love the Les George VECP. A smaller detail that I picked up on was just the fact that this kind of this like lock bar stop here, this disc right here is covered up by the pocket clip, and as we said before, the Les George is much more linear, like this way. Like I can kind of line it up on this cutting board right here, whereas this one, it's a little bit more offset, the Hinder XM18, but very, very similar in style and kind of what they were going for. The cutout here for the lock bar, which I will say on the Les George, I don't want to say that it's spongy at all, because I would be lying, but it's very easy to actuate the lock bar on here, and that's just due to how much they cut out here. Like you have very thin titanium here, which makes it kind of a breeze to actuate that lock bar, and I do not have any reservations that lock bar will not hold up over time, for sure. With the Hinder, it's a little bit, it's just as deep, but it's not as pronounced. Like it's not as wide, making it a little bit more stiff to actuate. But I mean, honestly, there are a lot of comparisons, and if you like anything by Rick Hinder, you are going to love the Les George VECP for sure. And the next comparison, but that Hendrix gin, it hits different. The next kind of observation that I wanted to make with this knife was, and as soon as I pulled this out of the pouch, I was like, I've felt this before. Like I know what this like jimping up here and this ramp up feels like. It really does remind me of like some older Emersons. Like you have this kind of this ramp up right here, right here. Obviously the thumb stud is going to be a little bit further forward, etc. But as far as feeling goes, they were very, very close. And I was like, that's actually really cool because I mean, ever since I've been into knives, like I've always loved Emerson knives. I have an appreciation for Benchmade. I kind of feel like Les George with this knife, he took all of the best parts of US made knives, whether it's Hinder, Benchmade, Emerson, and threw them into one very slick, albeit Gucci in this case, package. Again, like this Les George right here, when it dropped, it was going to be $675. So it's definitely not a cheap way around the block by any means, but it really did like that hand feel and just what it kind of felt like when I opened it up reminded me a lot of this Benchmade CQC7. And yeah, I think that's cool. It's kind of like a throwback to all those great made in the US knives from the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. So all right, and with that, we're almost wrapped up with this Les George VECP. I gotta get this thing back to Devin, man. I feel like I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I need to get this thing back before it turns into a pumpkin. But this was a really great knife to check out. Again, like I have over 100 videos on my channel. I've never checked out a Les George before, but I always knew that they were good, but I never found the right one for me to get. The one thing that kind of echoes with me with this knife is like, even at $675, like this is completely made in the United States. And certainly, and one of the reasons, even though, you know, I just got this thing and I'm kind of fond of it, whatever, 3.5-inch blade. Even though companies like Riot that are manufacturing things for the US, like the fit finish, whatever, the other thing that comes to mind are the Sharp by Design knives that I've reviewed in the past, etc. I know that they have it down, but it is so cool in this day and age to see a US manufacturer that is putting out a knife that, so what? So call it double what it would cost to be in China, whatever. Like, I will take a United States made version of the same knife all day. And that this knife right here, so this Les George VECP, was one in a handful that I'm like, hey, it can go toe to toe with anything that your high-end OEM Chinese knives are coming out with. And I think that that's definitely worth noting, and you can't overlook that. Like this thing is the complete package. I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm really excited to have been given the opportunity to check it out. So with that, we will wrap up my overview of the Les George VECP. Again, this is going to be the hand ground version featuring Chad Nichols Intrepid Damascus. All in all, this is a really tough it's a really tough knife, because I feel like it's one that you can kind of hang your hat on and be like, yep, I'm done. I got this one. We're good. Like, if you have this knife, if you purchase this knife, there is no reason to have anything else except for you like collecting knives, etc. I mean, it has all of the salient characteristics. No one can turn their nose up at this knife, and you know, with that Chad Nichols Intrepid Damascus, it's just kind of an extra little like kick. Like, yeah, this thing absolutely shines. And in this day and age, with everything that's going on, whether it's, you know, Chinese OEM knives, etc., this is going to be a winning combination. And I think anyone who has this in their collection is lucky to have it. Like, it's the complete package. Can't really find too many faults in it. So appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will see you next time.